Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, this is English 1010, and I wanted to go over some things for your midterm. Okay? Of course, your midterm will be next week, so remember, review your notes. But let's get started with the three purposes in writing. This comes from chapter 1 in your book. Okay? We have the three purposes in writing. And our first purpose is to inform. Okay, the first thing we need to do is inform, and that basically means that you need to give information. Next, we have convince the reader to your point of view, which is persuade. And the last one is to entertain, which is basically, to amuse your readers. Okay. Now let's look, of course, at the four steps in the writing process, the four steps in the writing process. The first step that we have, of course, is unity, which make your point and stick to it. Support, which is backing up your point with evidence. Coherence, organize and connect. And of course, we have error-free. And error-free means that, of course, you're looking over your work and you're making sure that you have absolutely no errors in your writing. Okay. Now we're going to look at the 5 techniques. What are the 5 techniques in writing? So the very next thing that we're going to talk about, of course, is we're going to actually get on to what is a verb. Okay, a verb is the action that's in this sentence. That's the definition of a verb. It is the action what that person or thing is doing in that particular sentence. Okay, so here we have a sentence: the dog jumped over the puddle. The verb in this is jumped because that's what the dog did. The dog jumped over the puddle. So jumped, and this is the verb. What is the subject? The subject in the sentence is who or what that sentence is talking about. So who or what that sentence is talking about is the subject in that particular sentence. Okay, so now what we do is we are going to go back for just a minute. And what are the 5 techniques in writing? Remember, we went over what was the 3 purposes, what was the 4 steps, and now this is the 5 techniques. Pre-writing, no worries about anything, questioning who, what, when, where, and how. Those are details. Making a list, jotting down ideas. Clustering, that's mapping, that's creating or placing the main idea in a circle, and then with supporting points, you will have lines drawn to the smaller circles, to the big circle, which is the main point, or sometimes you'll just automatically connect them. And then we have outline, and outline is basically outlining your ideas, what you're going to talk about. Sometimes they have things where they're set up and you'll have Roman numerals, okay? So that's outlining. Now let's go back to the subject, okay? The subject, the big brown dog jumped over the puddle. So who or what we're talking about in that sentence is the dog. The dog is the subject in the sentence. The dog is what we're talking about. The dog is the one that jumped over the puddle. Okay. The very next thing that we're going to talk about is adverbs. Okay, so we talked about subjects and verbs. Adverbs goes with the verb. The brown dog carefully jumped over the puddle. Carefully is the adverb in this because it described jumped. How did he jump? He jumped carefully. Okay. The brown dog wore a pair of socks. Okay. Brown dog. Brown is describing, of course, the dog. That is the adjectives. Sometimes you can have more than
one subject, a verb. The puppy slipped and tumbled on the kitchen floor. Slipped and tumbled is the verbs in that. Sometimes you can have more than more than one subject. Vampire, werewolves. Okay. Vampire and werewolves are repelled by garlic. There we got two subjects, vampires and werewolves. And remember, this comes from chapter 19. Okay, chapter 19 in your textbook. So the next thing that we are going to talk about, we're going to get into run-on sentences. Run-on sentences are in chapters 20 and 21. So of course, what do you need to know right now? You need to know, of course, what are the 3 steps, 4 techniques, and 3 steps, 3 purposes, 4 techniques, and also the 3 purposes, 4 steps, and 5 techniques. Okay. Now we're going to get on to, well, what is a run-on sentences? 2 sentences run together without any adequate sign to mark a break in between them. That is your run-on sentence. Okay, that's your run-on sentences. So what is a fragment? A fragment lacks a subject or a verb and must have a complete thought. So this sentence, because she stopped at the traffic light, well, what about that? So there's some more that needs to go with that sentence to make that a complete sentence. Okay. So this is only really part of the sentence, and this is here. So here we go. Because she stopped at the traffic light, she did not get a ticket. Okay, so that really what they did was complete the sentence. So make sure you look at chapter for fragments is 21, for run-ons is 22. Okay, run-ons are core sentences that are lacking punctuation. A fragment, of course, is lacking a subject or verb. Okay, so here we go. Review chapters 1, 19, and 21 through 22. Okay. Also, chapter 23 is make sure you know your past tense and present tense verbs. Okay, different tenses of verbs, and according to whatever this sentence is, and basically this is an example: know, knew, and known, based on how you would put that in your sentence. Okay, subject and verb agreement, plural subject, plural verb, were. The girls were happy about the decision to buy pizza. 2 girls is were. The girl was happy about the decision to buy pizza. 1 girl is was. So make sure, remember, if it's a plural subject, plural verb, singular subject, singular verb. And yes, were is a verb in this. Okay. One thing I also want you to remember is that we have different verbs, okay? Was is a verb, were is a verb, is, are, have, has, and had. Remember, these are verbs. Trevor and Anderson were able to pay for their car in cash. Of course, were in this is the verb, okay? Because that is what they were able to do. So were in here is the verb. It's not pay. It is were. That's part of it. Okay. The last thing that we are going to focus on is we are going to focus on works cited. Okay, so make sure you're able to really identify things that are in the works cited. For instance, remember when it comes to works cited that you You make sure that if you have more than one works cited, then you put it in order by the last name. Okay. Use your transitions in your paragraphs. First, next, finally. There are also some other ones in chapter 4. Be able to define what is a topic sentence and what is a concluding sentence. So I have examples, be able to identify them. Be able to identify how to properly cite your sources. We use MLA. And this is an example of how to cite your source. Brown, Sue, The World Today, Time Life Magazine. Okay, and you see how even with that, the dates are flipped. Okay, and this is only a partial works cited for that one. Okay, but remember, if I say, well, how do you put this works cited in order? It's by the last name, no matter what it is, in alphabetical order. Citing within the sentence, only use a portion of what that author says, not an entire sentence or 2 sentences, only a portion, and incorporate that in your sentence. And whatever you use, remember you put that in quotations, okay? Emails, also be able to distinguish how to write a proper email. And your headings, your name, my name, class, subject, and remember also reverse your dates, okay? So if I say, well, which one is the proper way to write your headings, be able to distinguish that as well.